Welcome everyone to this episode. Remember, we promise you to bring back Dr. Elijah Church to continue speaking to us, especially on his retirement and his work that he's doing at Siaya County. And I believe that we are going to learn more. So welcome. So welcome, Dr. Elijah.
Yeah, thank you, Calvin, for having me again.
Thank you.
Right.
And people, I want to say that maybe you are not with us on the last episode, and this is your first episode that you are watching. I want to introduce Dr. Elijah Church. That Dr. Elijah Church is a certified ethics officer from the Ethics Institute of South Africa, a certified public secretary from the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries Kenya. He is a founder, lecturer, and member of the Institute of Human Resource Management Kenya, a founder, lecturer, and member of Management University of Africa, Kenya Institute of Management, and was chief examiner in Human Resource Management, Kenya National Examination Council, that's NEC. He was also chief examiner and administrative officer, examination, and he has worked with the Public Service Commission of Kenya, and currently he is the Public Service Commission Chair of Siaya County. It's a man full of a lot of resource, and is a blessing to us even in this episode. He's an encourager. He reminds us that he's not a man of a lesser God. His God is great. Therefore, today we want just to get more from Dr. Elijah, especially on his retirement. Doctor, many times when people are approaching the retirement, there's that fear. How are you ready for your retirement?
Yeah, thank you, Calvin. The issue of retirement is an exciting topic. Mm-hmm. And retirement sometimes is regarded as a death sentence for somebody who is not ready for it. The public service has got procedures of undertaking retirement. One, you are given 1 full year a notice for you to be ready in terms of retirement. A letter is done to you, and usually retirement is undertaken when you attain the mandatory retirement age. You can also decide that you want to retire, and there is a provision for that. The retirement age of public servants currently is 60 years, but you can opt to retire under the 50-year rule. Now, what has been interesting, before this letter of notice was introduced, most of the workers used to be taken by surprise that their retirement has reached. And there were people who could commit suicide. There are people who would go home and really be just beggars, having put in 30 plus years within the service, which is really unfortunate. Based on that, some of the reforms that were brought in were that notice that one should be able to retire after being given a notice of 1 year. And there's also a pre-retirement training. When you reach the age of 50, 55, the public service arranges for, especially in the national government, they arrange for a course, which in most cases is tenable at the Kenya School of Government. And some of the things that are usually contained in that training are issues like financial management. How do you manage your pension that you have been given? Issues of wellness, especially issues of health. How do you undertake that? The issues of networking, so that, remember, you have been out of circulation and perhaps your intention is to go and settle back at your home. But of course, as people now develop, a home needs to be redefined. So that, for instance, if I stay in Nairobi and I have properties in Nairobi, when I retire, it's not a must that I must take my earthly belongings and head to to the county of my birth.
Oh, yeah.
So we've seen that happen several times. I have been lucky in the sense that I was part of the process of a Kenya School of Government and also training some of the Kenyans civil servants for preparation for retirement. So based on that, one then would say that I must have been very prepared for my retirement, which is true, but the reality is very different. As I said, you get your notice 1 year before. Like mine came in 2017.
Okay.
Yes, 2017, around June, informing me that you will be retiring within the next year during the celebration of your birthday, because it's usually it's usually your birthday when you attain that age.
That age, yeah, that's good.
But what is surprising is the mindset that still is within the public service. That letter is delivered to you in a manner to suggest that it is something that you should not have known about. It is stamped confidential.
Okay.
And usually by the time it is being typed from the office that is being typed from, the ladies who are usually the secretaries would have told either your secretary, unajua mdosi wako anaenda. And there is always some people who are almost celebrating your exit. I've never known people who would come and be with you in terms of coaching and counseling that now you are going to exit. Before I retired, we used to have a celebration of life of a retiree, in the sense that we could organize for a party, and we could even call the person to come with the family. But remember, some of the gifts that were being given was a wheelbarrow, a spade, and a djembe. And people eventually made fun of that, stating that you are really going with these implements to go and dig your grave. Yeah, so it has not really been very simple and easy for people to retire. So by the time, and I think this is a good practice, that there should be some form of thank you for having traveled this, and you should be celebrated, other than be looked at as somebody who was occupying an office. And sometimes people can be very vicious in terms of, remember, I think one of the politicians said, unafikiria hii ofisi ni ya mama yako. And usually that's what goes in the minds of civil servants. They can be whispering very loudly. Sasa alikuwa na gari ya serikali, alikuwa na kila kitu ya serikali, and now he's about to leave. What I have found interesting is that you get used to certain parts of the office. By the time I was retiring, I was having provision for office to home and home to office transport. So you are allocated a driver to be picking you up and also dropping you. Then you have perhaps 2 secretaries with you, and all the equipment, because the seniority level then depends on that. And the problem is, having gotten used to all these parts of the office, that you are entitled to, it can become very difficult for you to disengage from the office. So my turn, 11th June 2018, I attained the age of 60.
60, okay.
And based on that, I had to exit. And I had a few ideas in my mind what I really wanted to do. One was to sleep and wake up at 11.
Okay.
Because I used to wake up very early going to the office because of the traffic jam.
Oh, yeah.
So that by 4:30 you're already awake, by 6:30 you are taking off. I'm told now it's even worse with the constructions that are going on.
Yeah, that's good.
So that was one idea that I thought I wanted to do. The second
time
thing,
to sleep.
Yes, time to sleep. The second thing was to listen to my rumba music. Just enjoy myself. So after waking, taking my breakfast, I would listen to rumba and then watch the TV and movies. That didn't last more than 3 months, and I was completely tired of the routine that I had. And then I realized also something that was very interesting. Getting your pension from the pension department is not a walk in the park.
Okay.
And that is the time you really need monies. So whereas the law states that I think within 3 months you should be able to get your pension, it can take more than even a year, 2 years. I met with people who are telling me I've been here at the pension department for almost 3 years. That is one area that government needs to improve on. I do remember when we were, when I was still in charge of public service transformation, we did agree that through Rapid Results Initiative, we should transform the pension department so that people should retire and get their pensions and utilize that pension for whatever it is that they were going to. Remember, I did talk about the training. One of the things that you are trained on is financial management. What is it that you do with this money that you have? There's a lump sum money, which is relatively good amount of money. And if you're not very careful, you may discover that you are not able to use it very well. I think the government did it well, especially when the pension was then given every month. After you've gotten the lump sum, every month you are given your money. Okay. That helps in terms of preparing you on the usage of that money. But socially, as a retiree, there are certain things that you then discover. One, you have a lot of time in your hands. And if you're not careful, because of a lot of time, you may get into the wrong company, because you may find some of your colleagues who like the devil's drink. and based on that, you can start getting into that. We are always told that sometimes you need to retire with a young wife. So you marry another one. so you can marry another one. And then investments. It is not the time to get into a new investment.
Okay.
You can only invest your monies in an area that you know only too well. Something that perhaps you may have been running on the side. I think what the youth call a side hustle. So if you have a side hustle, then you can pump your monies into that hustle. But the time that you have, you may discover that you do not belong to the house that you thought you knew, because you used only to come, do your eating, make sure that everything is in order, and then go sleep, and then leave. But now you have a lot of time. You may discover then that you are starting to have unnecessary wars with your spouse. And usually you never knew that there are instances in which the house has to be cleaned. So you sit in the bedroom hoping that this will be finished, and you are lying there. As I said, I wanted to wake up at 11. But before long, somebody comes and says, we want to do
the cleaning.
So when you come out of that, you don't know what to do. So you come to the sitting room, watching your TV. They are finished with that bedroom. They come and say, now I want to do this area. And when you want to go back, you're told, no, I've just cleaned that place. You cannot go and step on it.
It's still wet.
Yes. So you start asking yourself, where do I go? So you say, well, I know my friends usually read newspapers, maybe at the bar. So you sit there, and when you're at the bar, you cannot just sit there without taking something. And it becomes a habit. So that is one of the things that one has to be aware of, that can become a habit. If you migrate to your county, you find yourself as a stranger. And especially for men, women integrate very fast because of their maybe chamas or merry-go-rounds or churches. The men takes quite some time before they get used to that. I was told that you go back home with a car, and the neighbors will be saying, you just wait, this fellow will downgrade. So so you start parking your car. Maybe you use now a motorbike, and they say it's Tulisema. Then it goes down, and sometimes you may just feel that you really wanted to exercise and walk. For instance, from my home to the shopping center, which is usually called center. It's almost 5 kilometers. So you may have an idea that this will give me a good exercise, but people will be saying, tulisema nini? Unaona sasa kama anza kutembea. And if
Unasalimia watu sasa.
So those things do happen. Well, for me, I was lucky in the sense that I had been doing a lot of consultancies. And when I retired, I joined Strathmore University as an adjunct lecturer. And we had our first consultancy in United Kingdom for a week. When I came back again, I had another consultancy in Arusha, Tanzania. And of course, there were the Kenyan consultancies that were going on. And most of this is the background that you have read. So what does it teach you? That you need to invest in education and also professionalism, because it gives you help in terms of how best you can be able to take care of yourself, or just make it as a hobby. You know, teaching, consulting, and any other things. So I think it generally one can say that you are never really prepared for retirement, especially the mindset. You may have, in theory, like I said, I was in charge of training most of the retirees, both in the Kenya School of Government in Mombasa and the Kenya School of Government in Nairobi. And in theory, it is very easy to tell people what they are supposed to do. But the practical one is very difficult. And how people, there's also a stigma in the sense that before retirement, I was always being introduced as a director or secretary from the office of the Prime Minister or from the office of Minister of Devolution and so on and so forth. And this could create a lot of excitement, and you could see people are hoping and wishing to listen to what you're about to say. Now, when you are retired, when you're being introduced, especially this is a retired civil servant, you would see the faces of people, hey, now, this retiree. One of the things that I purposed to do when I retired was to come out with a policy, and I'm hoping that any viewer from the ministry responsible for public service was on what I was calling the public service emeritus. Actually, it is a Latin word, and it is pronounced the way it is written, emeritus.
Oh, emeritus.
Yes, it is supposed to be, but people have anglicized it to be emeritus. Now, in the church, we have Archbishop Emeritus, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
In the universities, we have Professors Emeritus. And I thought that having all this knowledge, why can't I retire with my title? Just like ambassadors retire with their titles as ambassador so-and-so. The people in the discipline forces, there's major retired so-and-so. And I was thinking that the civil service must of necessity adopt this so that if, like right now, I would be a doctor, a retired, emeritus, director or whatever it is that is there. So that all these years you just don't lose them and you become faceless. A title is so important because it is something that is supposed to have developed by the time you are exiting. So we have quite a number of civil servants who are only, the only title they have is this, a retired civil servant. Well, I think through that journey, I was only retired for, I think, 2 years, 2018. In 2020, I got a job and was privileged to be appointed to head the Siaya County Public Service Board. It was an interesting journey. We are the second generation of the boards. There's a whole process for those of you who are following the Siaya appointment of the board. Remember, it took almost 3 stages. The first one, there was a rejection by the county assembly in terms of vetting the board. I was part of that process. The second stage, again, it was advertised and then was cancelled. And the third time when it was advertised, again, I did apply. I was lucky enough to be shortlisted. And after that, we went for an interview. When you are interviewed, you are then presented to the governor. In my case, His Excellency Colonel Rasanga. And then from there, they take it to the county assembly, where the county assembly then undertakes vetting. And if you are lucky enough to pass through that stage, then you are taken to be a member of the board or the chair of the board. So I applied for both. I was privileged enough to get to be the chair of the Siaya County Public Service Board.
Congratulations. I believe that you deserve it. And I believe that you are doing a good job there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, there's this thing, the whole government,
yes,
and the county. Is it working?
From my own background, since I was also in the ministry responsible for devolution, and I was also in terms of the reforms, or what we eventually call the transformation of the public service. The devolution is working in the sense that it has brought service to the lowest level and to the mwananchi, as it were. These governments are relatively very young.
Okay.
I think, in my view, maybe this is going to be, maybe there. It was 2010.
Yes, 2010 Constitution.
Yeah, Constitution. Now we are in 2021. So if you look at maybe 10 or 11 years, it would be very unfair to be, or very harsh to judge these entities as having not working. For instance, if you look at the functions that are given for the counties in the schedules in the Constitution, most of the functions are still held by the national government. And we know for a fact that the Constitution gives the counties 15% of the national budget. And this 15%, of course, administratively, we have been receiving around 32%. Now, if you look at the infrastructure that the counties are responsible for, it has been an opening of quite some areas that were inaccessible. The problem is that usually the demands of the mwananchi vis-a-vis the services that are rendered cannot be satisfied. You satisfy one need, the other one comes in. So it is a continual process of delivering service. What one can be talking about is the efficiency and effectiveness of the services that are being delivered. And bringing services to the people, if one looks at issues like hospitals or dispensaries, that is one area that the counties have done relatively well.
Okay.
In terms of market places, in terms of, but each of those counties are unique in their own way.
Okay.
My county, which is county code 041, and we talk about team 041, most people don't know that we manufacture oxygen.
Okay.
Which
Okay.
which the other counties, the neighboring counties, buy from us. Okay. And especially within the context of COVID-19, that is one area that we did very well in terms of assisting the other counties. Okay. If you look at the issue of tourism, it has opened up quite some areas that were not opened before. In the county infrastructure, even though sometimes people don't think those as development, you will find that new hotels have sprouted up.
Okay. Yeah.
If you look at some of the technical institutions, they have expanded in terms of numbers. Entrepreneurs have put up buildings, both for tenancy and also as hotels. Right now, the central business district of Siaya is, and especially the Siaya municipality, led by Professor Wawachola. There are walkways, and there are bicycle ways, and there are gardens. Most people would arrive in Siaya and ask, have we arrived? But right now, if you arrive in Siaya, you will see the gardens and you will say, I think now we have arrived. We must also be patient with these counties. There are certain few things that are always there. People talk about corruption, people talk about inefficiency, but as long as we can be able to manage some of these, I think the counties relatively are doing a better job.
Okay.
And it is a good thing for Kenyans really to embrace devolution.
Thank you. There's a vision that was formed many years ago. Maybe you are very active on it, the Vision 2030. And now every county also is having their own plans and their visions. How are they working?
Yes, thank you for that question. The Vision 2030 is the vision of the country, Kenya. Remember, this is not a federal state in which each of these counties are governments in their own. It is a unitary state in which the national government then gives directions. The Vision 2030, I think now we are talking about 8 years for it to come to an end. And one can ask, what is it that this Vision 2030, and how is the connectivity between the Vision 2030 and the county governments? If you read the Vision 2030, one of the key areas was economic, and especially there was economic, there was social, and then there was political or governance. Now, if you look at the economic development, and especially the huge infrastructural works that are going on are based on the Vision 2030. Okay. You look at the LAPSET and the Lamu Port. You look at the developments that are going on in Nairobi and in other parts of the country. I do remember with a lot of nostalgia when we launched the Vision 2030. As you rightly pointed out, I was part of that team. But when it came out, the cover of the book had roads passing through the Kenyatta International Conference Center. And people are saying, barabara ya gorofa hii tujaona. Watu wanakula pesa zetu, they are doing nothing. And then we decided to do a 50-kilometer road, which was Thika Road. But because Kenyans were, in my view, so traumatized by that development, they baptized this road Thika Super Highway. And now a super highway is not a 50-kilometer road like that one. Because right now we are seeing, like for instance, the expressway from, I think it's 27 kilometers from the airport to Westlands, where it is going to. So right now, Kenyans are more used to roads, overpass, underpass, bypass. Those were things that were contained in the Vision 2030. But then what is the connectivity between Vision 2030 and the strategies of the counties? Remember, at the top, there is the Vision 2030. The linkage is between, in the counties, are the county integrated development plans, the CIDPs. Okay. That you must have your plans which are linked or dovetail to the Vision 2030. Now from the CIDP, that is the County Integrated Development Plan, you then develop, because that one is a 5-year plan. Then you, out of the 5 years, you take each 1 year to roll out, which is the annual work plan. Okay. So you have the what is called the AWP after the CIDP. Then you have, out of that 1 year, you look at now the departments, which are the equivalents of ministries. Each must come with a strategic plan. Okay. That now distills the annual work plan into concretized things specific to the annual work plan. Then from there, you come now with a performance contract. How are you going to meet your targets? And you have a timeline. That's why I was talking about SMART targets. They are specific, measurable, attainable, result-oriented, and time-bound. So the moment you have that, you then go lower, and now you talk about staff performance appraisal. So when you talk about staff performance appraisal, that means that how are you going to attain the goals that you had indicated in your strategic plan. Okay. And the last stage is the individual work plan. What is it that me as a church is going to do? What is it that Calvin is going to do? So you can see that connectivity from the Vision 2030 up the individual work plan. Okay. If that is done very well. That is what is called performance management.
Okay.
Yeah, within that, and that is one of the mandates of the county public service boards.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. So in other words, you can say that there's no duplication of activities.
No, there's just complementarity and the joining together of what the government, the national government wants to do,
Okay.
and the complementarity comes from from the counties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good information. We, the lay people, we were so much confused that if Kiambu decide to have an international airport,
yes,
and Nyeri also have, and they can do it without consulting the national government.
No,
Thank you.
The consultation is there.
Must be there. Thank you, Dr. Now at your office, as being a chair, and you had a mandate. What are those the mandate that you are given? How have you achieved them? How can you grade yourself? If you were to resign today, can you go home smiling that when I was there for those 3 years, I did my best?
Yes. The county public service boards derive their mandate from the County Government Act number 17 of 2012. Now, if you look at section 58 of that act, that's where the mandates of the board is. And there are almost 10. I may not list all of them, but I will only highlight some of the more important ones. Like the abolition and creation of offices, the discipline of staff, the performance management, the human resource planning. We have also a recommendation to the SRC, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, which is a constitutional office. The boards are supposed to give them recommendations in terms of salaries. Remember, we talk about a wage bill that is far above the recommended 35%, as recommended by the Public Finance Management Act. So based on this, one of the flagship mandates is usually recruitment of staff. And anytime a board is undertaking this process, most people then know that the board exists. But our biggest mandate is in terms of promotion of the national values, which are contained in, I think, Article 2 of the Constitution. The national values, we are supposed to promote this within the counties. I think, with due respect, most of the boards have not done this very well. But remember, the president was giving the state the speech. Was it yesterday? Yes. And most of it is derived from the values of the constitutional values that are there. The civil service or the public service, apart from Article 10, there is also Article 232, which looks at specific public service values. Now, these values are specific to the public service because it is the engine that is supposed to drive the constitutional process. And the fathers or the people who came up with the Constitution thought it wise that an entity that was so important, like the public service, needed to have distinct values specific to itself. Issues like efficiency, effectiveness, economic use of resources are so important to the citizenry that if services are not given at the right time, at the right place, with the right people, then the citizenry will not be happy. So those at Article 10 and Article 232 are so important. abolition of offices or creation of offices is key. There are offices that might become obsolete and may not serve any purposes, or because of change of technology and the requirement, there might be need for creation of an office. But there must be a justification, and this justification comes from the executive, and it goes to the county assembly. If the county assembly gives the go-ahead, then the board creates those offices. Okay. In terms of performance management, is what I described about the Vision 2030, the CIDP, that is the County Integrated Development Plan, the annual work plan, strategic planning, and cascading towards performance management, and going down to staff performance appraisal systems, and then the individual work planning. So that is performance management. Okay. And this is a legal requirement by the cabinet to make sure that the tools and instruments of performance management are in place. Okay. We are supposed to give our professional advice. Remember, the board is the human resource management agency responsible to the executive. So we do serve in terms of technical competences and advice to the executive in terms of human resource management. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. I hope other counties are engaging you.
Yes, without blowing again my trumpet, we have had quite a lot of consultations, especially the neighboring counties, which I will not mention for obvious reasons, but I have been requested to be a resource person and assist most of the counties, which I have done. And I think there are quite a number of counties that keep on consulting us. We are currently reviewing our human resource management policy and procedures. And every time I go for meetings, the counties ask me, we are really waiting out for the rollout of that policy to find out what is new in it. Definitely we reviewed it because of the environment that we are now operating in, issues of technologies, issues of COVID, and new methods of work that has come out. Okay.
How do you relate with the political class, especially now that we are approaching 2022 election? Are you working with all MCAs, or you are favoring your MCA than the other MCA?
What is important really to note is that a government by its very nature is political. And in terms of creating a government is a political process. So that one cannot be avoided. The head of the county is a politician, that is the governor. And the entity, which is the county assembly, are politicians. So sometimes people wonder that you want to be apolitical. Now, being apolitical is not possible. What is important is to manage the politics. The management of politics is to be objective in terms of what you're doing, not to align yourself in terms of the political groups that exist, and to serve the government of the day without necessarily talking about taking sides. If you do that, then relatively you are okay, even though the pressure is always there. That sometimes you would want to feel like, okay, these are the opposition, or these are people who did not vote for so and so. For us, as a good public servant, you serve the government of the day, and you become impartial and objective in terms of what you're doing. That helps any board that might be watching this, and always being very diplomatic in terms of dealing with the political class.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are there, and we have to work with them.
Thank you. Thank you. When is your term ending?
We have done 2 years since we came to office. We came to office in March 2020. The term is usually 6 years. So we are talking of 4 years from now. And then we'll exit. And we are hoping that we'll have laid a good foundation, and that the incoming team 4 years from now will have a solid board. Remember, there are still new instruments that are being looked at. Severally, the law has been amended. For instance, the County Government Act has been amended severally to come up with the independence of the board and recruitment issues. Then there is a bill that is in the Senate. I think it's almost going to the third reading, called the County Public Service Board's Bill 2019. We are hoping that it will become an act of parliament, and that would give directions on some gray areas where sometimes the Mother Act does not bring out. Then we are hoping that when the bill comes out, then we can have regulations that would go into details of how to undertake that. Remember, there are also constitutional requirements when you are undertaking a recruitment within the boards. One is that there should be regional balance. There should be a percentage of people with disability. You should have to look at gender, and then the marginalized group, 30% of the people. Sometimes people ask, but who are these marginalized groups? You may discover that maybe within Siaya, there might be either people who have settled there, like perhaps the people from northeastern, the Somalis who are trading there. So if now they are citizens of Siaya County, you must look at 30% of the positions that you are looking at. Because the auditors, when they come, they will be asking you, can we see how you have addressed the issue of the 30% of the marginalized people? And then the people with disabilities, the gender issues, and then the regional balance. So it's not a very easy job. It's very complicated when you are undertaking that. And that's why sometimes people wonder why I was number one in the list, but I was not taken. It's simply the constitutional requirements that might have knocked you out. If we find that perhaps number two was a lady, and the majority of people that we have taken are men, then even if you're number one, we may say now, I think we need to have this person there. But in most cases, number ones, we take them on merit. Yeah, because merit is the first thing that we look at. Then we look at all those other issues that I have elaborated.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. Now we are approaching the year 2022, the year of election. Are you ready to work with a new governor, because your current governor is going to end his term? Are you ready to work with the new MPs, or you have a camp that you are supporting?
A good civil servant works for the government of the day. And if you do that, any government that is coming in would really embrace you. And the reason why I was talking about the bill, the County Public Service Bill of 2019, is simply because the first generation of boards had it very rough. There are so many cases that went to court in terms of maybe the incoming administration saying they want to work with their own people. Remember, we are civil servants, and we are on contract. We have those who are on permanent and pensionable terms. So you cannot simply come and say, I can't work with you. Just like happens in the national government, there are usually changes of administration, but the civil servants are usually there.
Okay.
This is something that we want to stress for county public services and any incoming administration. And my plea then would be that the public servants do not align themselves to the various formations that are there, much as you are supposed to choose. The Constitution gives you the right of belonging to any party. But as long as you're a civil servant, you do not demonstrate it. Okay. That you can only serve the people coming from this party because they didn't vote for you or they are going to vote for somebody. So that has helped us a lot whenever we are executing our duties.
Thank you so much, Daktari. I'm so much glad to have you in this talk show, and I've learned a lot. I love your Queen English. And
incidentally, Calvin, I usually joke that having read all the books in Kenya, I then went to the land of the Queen for my master's.
Okay.
And one of the things that was very strange was that we were given an aptitude test to find out whether we were eloquent in terms of the Queen's language, especially the understanding. And we complained justifiably that one of our national languages is English, but they could not understand that. And we did it in protest, most of us from the English-speaking countries. And I remember a friend of mine from Zimbabwe scored the highest at 98. I was 98%. I was following with a 96%. Okay. And we defeated the natives of Britain in terms of their own language. So those natives are not as eloquent as I must say as myself. And I usually tell people, it's so expensive to have bought this language for you not to speak it. Yeah, well, I've always been challenged, why do you speak a lot of English? I said, but I bought it so expensive. So thank you so much, Calvin.
Thank you so much
for having me again.
Again, thank you. Now, finally, as we end, and I thank the viewers who have been with us in this episode. In the first episode, I hear you clearly quoting God, and you say that your God is not a small God. Are you a Christian? And if you're a Christian, which church do you worship?
I think here I have to be very honest. I'm not a practicing a Christian. I would do better perhaps.
Okay.
But I've always said that I grew up in a very notorious Christian family. By the time I was born, I think my parents were saved. I'm not sure what that means. Perhaps you know it better. And based on that, we grew up really attending church as a matter of course, mostly at St. Stephen's Jogo Road, when I was staying in government quarters, Jogo Road. That was my initial church. Then when we moved to Rubia Estate, we changed to All Saints Cathedral, where we worship. And whereas I can do better in terms of of attending, but I have some ambiguity. I don't know whether it is religion or whether it's God, but I do believe there's a superior being that takes care of the things that we do on earth. I find a lot of difficulties sometimes. I don't know whether it's the clergy that I have issues with. Perhaps, yes. But I do believe that a superior being is watching over us.
Amen.
whatever you call it, whether it's God and wherever you worship it, whether it's in a church, I think that is something that is important for us. And it brings a lot of sanity, because you can imagine if we never thought that there was life after death, we could be almost mad in terms of what we do. But knowing that there's somewhere where you're going, and if there's somebody that I am very sure must have gone there, is a lady called Mildred Florence. Wow. ACHOCH, that's your mother. I kept on telling her, when you reach there, please reserve a room for me. I'm hoping she has talked with St. Peter's, and my room is there.
Thank you.
Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. We're so grateful to host Dr. Elijah ACHOCH, the chairman of Siaya Public Service Commission. Man with a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, and I believe that those who can reach him, you can gain a lot and a lot. He's a believer that is God, he is bigger, and therefore he believes that anything that he wants, so long he works smart, God will always reward him. I want to thank all of you for following this episode, and I believe that you have learned something, that it doesn't matter. He went from schools that are not noticed even maybe in our public media. Some people like us, we went to a better school. We call them Chianda High School. But some of his school I can't even mention. But determination, working smart have made him to be who he is. And he have retired. But even in retirement, the county government have engaged him and is enjoying his time working there. I thank all of you. May you continue following this channel. If you have not subscribed, subscribe. Share this article to different groups that you are, so that they can learn something. Share it to other county governments, and may God bless us. Thank you, and I end by thanking this production house, the Makogwell, the Talanta Group. May God bless you for the good work you are doing. Shalom, shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the Talanta Group.
Yeah, when you talk, time is going very fast. It's flying.